Anything on your website is really easy for anyone to audit. Run this tool on your software, B2B backend software, and then it will present a report that you share back to us. From a place where privacy teams were writing policies to a place where they have to enforce those policies and make sure their controls are working.
Hello everyone, I am Sergio Maldonado and this is Masters of Privacy, a set of interviews covering the intersection of marketing, data, privacy and technology with a clear goal in mind, which is redefining the relationship between people, brands and media around transparency and control. Which is to say, we're aiming for real customer centricity, or if you will, human centricity. We regularly talk to DPOs, CMOs, CDOs and whoever else we find interesting and able to share valuable insights. So we hope you like it. Please do reach out if you have any ideas on future topics or speakers. Okay, this is our fourth interview in the Privacy Tech series. We are staying on the east coast of the US before we move back to the Bay Area after our latest interview with Ethica's Killian Kieran. And we are also staying on the more technical side of privacy compliance. Our guest today is Vaibhav Antil, who is founder and CEO of Privado.ai. Before starting Privado, Vaibhav led product management at a tech company and worked with a legal team on GDPR compliance. Vaibhav started Privado to solve the language gap between legal, privacy and product engineering teams. With him, we'll discuss what the ICO has called baked-in privacy. So, built-in safeguards within programming environments, within project management tools. We'll discuss real-time alerts, code scanning, back-end auditing, even a maturity model, and the general idea of moving from what I will call words-based trust to code-based evidence. And that is my take on the title of one of Vaibhav's recent talks, which is From Trust to Evidence. Let's go for it. Welcome, Vaibhav.
Thanks, Sergio, for having me.
It's a pleasure. So you have been talking at your Bridge conference. You spoke of this concept of going from trust to evidence. How would you summarize that, please?
Yeah, sure. So, thanks for mentioning Bridge. It's one of the exciting conferences that we do every year where we bring privacy practitioners and, helping them go beyond just the law in terms of the actual practices. And one of the themes we've observed in privacy is this concept of shifting from trust to evidence. Simply what it basically means, if you look at the privacy office, the accountability model has shifted. There was a time where you could write a privacy policy, draft contracts and say like, hey, we covered it in our privacy policy and contract and we are okay. Lately, however, because of the new laws and the accountability requirements, it's not enough to say we have a contract. You need to do your third-party risk management. It's not enough to say we have a CMP. The CMP needs to work, else you'll get a CCPA fine or a SEPA in US, which is common, a VPPA fine, lawsuit or a SEPA lawsuit, right? So I think the trust to evidence shift, it kind of mirrors the shift in the privacy office from a place where privacy teams were writing policies to a place where they have to enforce those policies and make sure their controls are working. And kind of how we see it more on the product side as a vendor is instead of relying on people to tell you what they do with data, which is the classic stepping point of any privacy program, is you run interviews, assessments, checklist, to a place where you go to the source, which could be multiple things. It could be, for example, if someone is proposing something, they might have documented it in a process document. So you basically scan the document. Or if it's a website and your CMP, you scan the website. Or if it's your product, it's your mobile app, it's your SaaS product, you scan the source code. So the concept is you move from trusting people to tell what they do with data to directly work attacking the thing they've produced, which could be a document, a website, a mobile app, a code, and use that as an evidence to then finally verify, hey, our privacy policy, our DPAs, our promises to our B2B customers actually is being followed, and we have evidence to prove that. So that's kind of the whole concept.
So everyone has now got a bit more technical to make sure that what you say matches what you do. But in the end, that's never going to be enough. As we all know, enforcement agencies have limited resources, even in California, for example.
So yeah, first of all, spot on. Regulators are getting more technical across the board. I know for a fact that in US there are regulators who work with companies who can also scan mobile app or individuals on the forensic side. So that's on the regulator side. I think the big shift I've seen in US especially is it is tied with consumer class action lawsuits. So it's very capitalistic in that sense that there are these law firms who have found out a way to say like we will do a class action lawsuit on you and make money off it, and that has actually that has been the main motivator for compliance in US, which is missing from Europe. The only one I think is the NOYB organization, but that's not like in US there's like so many law firms doing that, and that's on website. I started to see the same in mobile apps, so it's like it's catching up, right? So I think that's happening there. The way I think about it, there is a front office privacy posture, which is what your consumers and customers see. I think on that front, or anything on your website is really easy for anyone to audit, a regulator, a user. So I would say that's like if I'm working in privacy, my highest priority should be websites and my SaaS dashboards, right? Because people can like literally install an extension and validate. There are tons of those. Um, Mobile app is slightly tougher, but it is possible as well. And back office is something that we do to support the front office story, right? Like that's where the classic argument is, hey, what's the justification to do efforts in doing data mapping and all this? I do see a future where there'll be these companies which are doing consent on your behalf or passing GPC signal on your behalf will either do more reports, like Mozilla does quite a few of reports on companies, and that would move the market because that will move the regulator. So that's kind of how I think about this problem.
Thank you. So after this divergence, can we revisit your maturity model, please? What is it about?
Yeah, sure. So it's basically the idea of connected to trust to evidence. So the way I think about how privacy officers are building their privacy program and also the justification in privacy, I think the first floor is compliance is where everyone starts. It's like, hey, we are launching in Europe. We need to be GDPR compliant. I think this is when all the laws came, GDPR, California law, everyone starts there as like, hey, we need to get compliant. Um, from a privacy office, it's very checklist, assessment, questionnaire driven. That's the trust paradigm. Uh, as privacy office, they have low confidence on like, hey, how much are we short? We are representing, but they have like some obvious problem solved. So that's where everyone starts. I think that's the floor for privacy team. For me, maturity wise, the next is business enabler. That's kind of where we see is like turning privacy from a compliance function to a business enabler. And once you move there, then it's more about going and learning different business functions, how they operate, and then adopting their practices. So I'll take some example, uh, websites and marketing. So when you go from compliance, you're basically implementing a CMP and just making them go through your assessment process. When you move to a more business enabled mode, you're saying, okay, we're going to take a scanner like Privado for our website and give it to marketing team. So whenever there is our brand, which adds a pixel because they're going to add pixels every other day. But we're going to scan and give them alerts when they make a mistake so they can fix it real time. So then you become a business enabler. Same, let's take mobile app and developers. Your developers will put SDKs and you have a privacy notice. So whenever they add an SDK which doesn't satisfy your privacy notice, you have a scanner that then alerts them. So the business enabler layer is where you're more confident and you are actually helping the business move fast. So you're like, I know we're going to adopt AI. I know we're going to write with all this vibe coding 100x code at the speed of light with less developers, less people, do all the crazy marketing. So the way privacy is supporting is we will adopt your processes either by buying or building scanners that give you alerts, so guardrails in your process, or adopting the way you work. So if you work in Jira, we will be part of Jira and make sure Jira is a tool that product and engineering teams use, right? So, or if you use Asana for project management, right? So I think that's the next layer for privacy teams. Like, hey, we're not about just compliance. We are helping you do your work better. So we will give you the guardrails so you don't make the mistake. So then marketing teams are like, okay, we're going to add tons of trackers because it's our use case, because we need to retarget. If I run an e-commerce website, you look for socks. I want to, give you sock ads, so you will buy it. But I need to make sure that I'm not violating CCPA or GDPR or 19 state laws. So privacy has given me a tool to help me do my job better. So that's the next level. And that's like the evidence level layer. And the final, I think, layer for this, in my opinion, is where privacy org goes from compliance to business enabler to a revenue center, and helps you tell the customer, to the end customer, the privacy story confidently. This is where, as a business, where you have not a privacy policy page, but a page where you're saying, this is our privacy controls. We know they work. This is where you can go and export your data, delete your data. This is how much we are doing in terms of website, where privacy is a central part of your brand. And that only happens when you're doing constant monitoring and auditing, right? So you have like these tools which are always running, which are always monitoring. You've moved from manual processes to that. That's the ultimate for privacy, because now it's not like a back office function. It's basically central to your story. I see like amazing brands do that. Like Apple, everyone knows, but I do think like Zoom Info does such an amazing job. Privacy is such central to their story. There are a few more. I think AppsFlyer is another brand. Their DPO posts on LinkedIn quite often. I see that quite often. So privacy is central to their story as well. So I think B2B or B2C. Another one, I think Flow comes to my mind on the B2C side. Like they also use privacy as their central story. That can only happen once you move from, the final layer where you're constantly auditing and monitoring all your controls. And that's the evidence, right? Like you have evidence for everything and you can confidently do that. So I think as privacy office, that's the evolution I feel maturity wise that they need to make to their program. And that's where, we have good justification from right from the C level saying, yeah, we need privacy to be our story as well.
So you ingrain yourself in every process, and
Yes.
you're diluting the role of a lawyer, so to speak, or the privacy expert, in the sense that if it all becomes more of an engineer, and we recently tackled that issue as well, a privacy engineering or a privacy or a technical problem, in the end you are moving away from someone that comes from that angle, which is interpreting the law and then trying to understand every process and then revisiting, slowing everyone down. Everything can move on faster. We've also had an interview on the role of the product counsel to move things a bit faster instead of going back to compliance and to chief privacy officer or to the DPO. And so you're ingraining this within every process you make, and you create these alerts, all these triggers. And in a way, the DPO is sort of disappearing from the picture. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, right? Because maybe she can't cope, right? So she's sort of taking a back seat because now she's going to have all of stuff done for her. You're going to have ROPA automated, the data mapping is automated, so you can see, the entire stack of data processors. There's a lot of stuff that will be done for her. Also, she's not interrupting anybody because, again, people are coding and then you're scanning the code and APIs, SDKs, all that stuff. The question I have is, how do you translate the world of the law, subject to interpretation, liquid as words are, to the world of deterministic triggers that throw an alert whenever something seems to be clearly violating such law?
Yeah, great question, Sergio. And before I answer your question directly, like this is the thing I like about privacy a lot. Essentially, like if you think about the privacy officer's job, it's one of the hardest. I would think like it's as hard as like someone who's working in the security office, because in security, like you have new threat vectors coming because of like new hackers finding new ways. Like in privacy, that's the law. Like the law is liquid, you have new state laws coming, you have new interpretation of the same specific laws, you have new EDPB guidance, so that's liquid. And then on the other hand, technology is liquid, right? So privacy is basically about data, and data is linked to technology. And technology, especially as of now with all the AI models and everything, is I have never seen like the pace of technology changing so fast. So privacy officers, like on one hand, needs to know about technology, needs to know about use of data, and second hand, basically needs to get updated on all the law changes, all the interpretation, and then work on that. So that's the exciting part about privacy and the most challenging piece as well. How do you solve it? I think to answer back your question, like if all these tools automate everything, you embed everything, what's the role of DPO? What will they do? I feel there is a grunt work on the reality of data, which is not connected to the laws. So you have the base reality of what happens to data in this organization. Which vendors do we use? Which SDKs do we use? Do we have a tracker? Does it fire before consent, after consent? I think that reality is what tools can automate really, really well. So you have that reality irrespective of the laws. You have like a base understanding of what's happening with data today. And that should all, the more you can automate, the more you can become part of the businesses, better. So you have that base reality. And that's where the role of the DPO comes, which is in the second piece. Think of that as a policy layer. That's how we have also thought about it in Privado, made it very configurable. You think about your role as someone who maintains a policy control library, which is liquid, which is fluid, which needs to be updated as new information comes in. And that we start with the base layer of based on the law, but for every company, the risk is different. Someone might say, hey, we work in a regulated environment. For us, if there is one EDPB guideline, like for example, the CNIL French regulator has said, there is like a cookie expiry recommendation from them, right? So it's like something like 13 months. So
yeah, for analytical cookies, 13 months, no consent. Yeah.
right. So something like that. So now we take the strictest or we take like something else. So that's like the job of the DPO. And that's where I think that's the high value work. That's not the grunt work. That's where they're trained on interpreting the law, interpreting the exact guidelines, looking at the risk of the company and then saying, based on this, this is our policy, today's policy control. And then what can happen is the same data, if it's not changed, tomorrow there's a new guideline. Based on that, you update the policy, it will recalculate based on your current data story and say these are the new risks. Some risks were closed because we updated our policy library saying these rules are not valid anymore. So we closed 10 risks and we created 10 new risks because these are new policy controls, new interpretation based on that. So I think that's the exciting part about moving to more evidence-based, more tools is you let the grunt work be done by these tools and you apply your mind in like higher level thing, which is like what's risk, what's policy, what are our rules in which our business operates. And I feel that's the same in regular processing as well. So I like to always think as 80-20. So if you can have 80% of your things are going to be the same. The marketing team uses 5 trackers, they might use a 6. So if you can have the same process for 80% and then leave your work for the 20% net new technology, like some new marketing vendor has come which uses cookie-less, browser-less, fingerprint-less technology to give you data or help you retarget, you actually then poke holes and say, okay, no, this is not really right. So help in the 20% off cases, meet the 80% like process rule driven is kind of what my mantra is.
Very good. It strengthens the case for tools such as yours, because in the end, you're establishing sort of a knowledge base. This is a layer where you are doing the work of defining the red lines in principle. So that's really the advantage that you are yourselves keeping these red lines up to date. But at the same time, you also allow the DPO or the CPO to sit behind and at a more abstract level also then have another layer of red lines. So those that come from you as a tool that is alive, and then those that come from them as people able to configure that and to
Absolutely.
then fine tune it. Right, that's very good. So then I've got a question about the back end, and so the back office, right? Front office, very clear. So the DOM, as you said, sometimes even the mobile apps can be scanned, SDKs, there's lots of platforms. But in the back end, there's a lot of work that you do, which is very interesting to me. For example, a case that you made also at Bridge is that people are using Copilot and using tools like Cursor AI to then spit out code, and they may be, triggering an alert. So that's clear. Whenever it's in the code, whenever it's there in your face, and something that's going to see the light in the front end. For backend development, that is something that I'm very interested in, because I've put a lot of time into auditing third-party vendors, right? So third parties that become processors, data processors, and there's only so much you can see without their own collaboration, right? If they open up and they show you their inner works and their databases and whatever they're doing behind the scenes, or they let you see through their sub-processors in greater detail, then you see more. But normally it's very hard. So both for enforcement agencies and for the chain of custody of those that are buying tools that ingrain, again, whichever systems, is there a way to surface safeguards that you see, or to put into value all the effort you're doing to audit and fine-tune the backend?
Yeah. So again, great questions. And this is like a debate even when we are selling Privado, that, we will always have with the customers, like front office is clear value, risk is high, fix it first. Back office is kind of like, I like to call it like a debt that you are taking. So it's like a loan that you are, every few months, you're like, you're piling up loan on your privacy office. Like the late you fix, the loan amount goes up. And usually it will not come out as a finding by a regulator or a litigator or a consumer. It will come out as like a breach. It will come out like something else happened, and then the regulator comes in and says, okay, now we're going to do an audit. And then you're like, okay, show us your ROPA, show us your third party list. And they're like, we don't really know, because we delayed actually improving the backend. So I think improving the backend will take, again, from a maturity perspective, that's when you can tell the customer story well, confidently, only when you have like solved both front and back, right? Because then you can actually make the claim of like, hey, we are actually private. Because if you make a false claim, then that's like, then it's actually better to not make the claim than make a false claim, right? So it's like, if you make a claim, you better have both houses in order at least. So how is it possible? So there are a few ideas. So there's like audit. I can talk about like both B2C and B2B context. So if you're signing a SaaS deal with someone, generally you have audit rights. Nobody does it. It's very hard to get people to do it. It will be impossible. In the security world, however, there are a few ways you can do it. One is like security asks you to say, hey, do like a SaaS, like a security scan of your software and give us the report, right? So I feel the same can happen in privacy. Like we are actually working a little bit towards that, wherein if you are a company, you can like ask them, we have like an open source Privado tool. So you can like ask them to say, run this tool on your software, B2B backend software, and then it will present a report that you share back to us to validate you are not using any third party which is not listed in your sub-processor. So I think it's a little early. Yeah, so it's a little early. Yeah, so it's a little early, but we are shaping that idea up to offering us to our customers, and then also to B2B companies to do that. So, but for me, the main thing on the back ends of why privacy teams have to do it is ultimately that customer story. If you're a B2B customer, if you're a B2B company, privacy should be part of the sales conversation, right? It's like, hey, we're going to help sales sell more because we are confident that this is our data map, this is our ROPA, this is our sub-processor, this is what we do with data. We are confident. So when they go and they're trying to land a 6-figure or 7-figure deal with Fortune 100 companies, the sales team is confident because they have all these privacy artifacts. That can only happen when you're taking care of your backend. In B2B, there's no other way. In B2C, it's the customer story. Like if you want to make privacy a revenue center, you're going to tell the customer story in like Uber has, for example, a great customer story on a privacy story on their website. They can only do that when they're confident that their controls are working both on the front end and the back end. So that's the logic. How you do that is there are, like first tools like ours where you can scan your backend software, your third parties, all of that, and continuously validate controls. But the general idea is in this direction is the entire argument or the entire logic to take care of the back office is to connect privacy with revenue, B2B sales, B2C, the customer story.
Last question. What's the most exciting thing about whatever you're working on or things that you believe someone should be working on in the space, something that you see coming because of I don't know, AI or not AI? Maybe we're tired of AI. Whatever. What do you think is really exciting about the near future?
Yeah, I think privacy is for us, like basically like we've kind of reacted to how the privacy market has kind of evolved. And I also tell what I am excited about building on is kind of we have now built and given auditor tools to companies for website and mobile app to take care of the front office, where they can, as a privacy officer, anyone in the company as a lawyer, open their mobile app in a dashboard of Privado, run any test and validate if GPC is working, is banner is working, they're not leaking location data. Same for website. So I think taking care of the front office, what I'm really excited about is all this new LLM that has come into the world. We haven't really applied those to privacy's core job. Like, for example, assessments. Assessments are static, right? Basically, you have a set of rules that you have created once, but as you were saying, the guidance is changing, the fines are changing. So in our version, what we are excited about and working is a world in which assessments which you need to do at the design stage are not static, wherein as a company, you upload your documents which you are working on. So let's say if I'm a product manager, I'm building a new feature, I upload my PRD, which is a product requirement document, and that fills the assessment, which is linked to the source, again evidence based. And then second, for me, the rule set is not a static rule set. It's basically taking in like a dynamic rule set, which taking in all the fines, all the guidance, all your past assessments, all your rules, and saying, hey, by the way, this thing is violating directly, is going to directly do the same thing which was involved in this fine. So then you get the context fact. So I think I'm really excited about removing the grunt work from privacy. That's kind of what motivates us internally, is like, how can we like remove all this grunt work and let privacy do higher and higher value add work internally. So that's what we are excited about.
Thanks again, Vaibhav. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, that's all for today. Follow us on Blue Sky, and in the Masters of Privacy Altogether profile, you will find the starter pack, which includes the feeds of all of our past guests. There is also a Masters of Privacy LinkedIn channel, which I invite you to follow, where you will find links to our transcripts, cheat sheets, and other surprises every now and then. Our main website is mastersofprivacy.com. Thank you for listening.